All right, here we go. Today we have former Queenpin and BMF affiliate Brandi Davis. Welcome to Vlad TV.
Thank you.
Well, you have a very interesting story, and I want to start in the very beginning. So you grew up in Detroit.
Yes.
Okay. And your mom and dad have a kind of an age difference, right?
Yeah, they do. A big age difference.
Okay. And your mom was 16 and your dad was in his 30s
Yeah, he was
somewhere?
around 32 at the time when they met.
Okay. And do you know the story of how they met?
Well, I got a little bit. I could recollect a little bit on it. My mom told me, like, back in the day, when she met my dad, she was younger. My mom had a whole bunch of sisters, and like all my aunts are like really, really pretty. So my dad met her, but it's always a joke because she said, like, back when my dad met her, he was like a pimp. Um, and it was always, she said, when I met your dad, I met him and I had to let him know that, I wasn't going to be one of his hoes. She was like, so I hope he didn't think that. But he ended up meeting her. My grandma didn't like my dad at first because of the age difference. So she said my grandma was very much so against that. But eventually, I guess you know how love is. They end up progressing and she ended up getting pregnant with my sister at 18. So they were locked in since then.
Right. And there's 3 kids altogether.
Yes, I have 2 sisters. One that's 5 years older than me. Her name is Choo. We call her Choo Choo. And then I have a younger sister that's 4 years younger than me. Her name's Lily.
Okay. So here you are growing up in this family. There's 3 kids. And what you don't know early on is that your dad's actually a major drug dealer in Detroit.
Correct.
Okay. And you guys are growing up in, sort of a wealthy kind of household, right?
Suburban. Yeah, regular suburban household.
Okay. And your mom is basically a stay-at-home mom who takes care of the kids while your dad does whatever he does.
Yes.
And brings in all the money.
Yes, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And what's crazy is a lot of people ask me, like, how didn't you know your dad was a drug dealer? But what they don't understand is back in that day, hustling was a little different. You know what I'm saying? Like, a hustler wasn't like a guy with big jewelry or walk around with saggy pants. Like, my dad got dressed, he wore suits, and he owned a lot of real estate in Detroit, like, properties, apartment buildings he owned. So I always thought my dad was a real estate investor. So growing up, I thought my dad did real estate. So if anybody asks, like, what did your parents do for a living? I'm like, my mom's a stay-at-home mom and my dad does real estate.
Okay. And that story was going until 1993 when you were 11 years old and all hell broke loose.
Yeah. One morning we were getting ready for school, typical getting ready for school. My mom was making us breakfast, me and my sister. We were eating breakfast in the kitchen, getting ready for school. And we heard a big boom, 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 boom at the door. And what's crazy is I don't know what my instinct told me. I felt like when somebody was bamming at the door, it was somebody trying to bring harm to my family. Only because growing up, a lot of my cousins, or that's not really blood cousins, but people I grew up and called cousins, their dads was in the same lifestyle as my father. So at a young age, I experienced some of my friends' fathers being murdered, mothers being killed. So in the back of my mind, when I heard that bamming at the door, I thought somebody was coming in to bring harm to my family. When they finally got in, I seen that it was the police, and it's sad to say I was a little bit more relieved to see that it was law enforcement instead of somebody trying to get into our house and do something to us.
Well, the feds burst through the house,
Mhm.
guns drawn, laser sights on
Yes.
everybody. And, there's kids screaming, mom screaming, and then they go and arrest your dad.
Yes, it didn't typically go like that. Like at first when they came in, they took me and my mom and my sisters, they had us in a corner in the kitchen. They had guns to us. But my mom, she ran up the stairs first. Like before they came in, she must have knew what time it was because she ran up the stairs and she must have woke my dad up. So when she woke my dad up to let them know somebody was at the door, they caught my mom at the top of the stairs like this with her hands up. And then they brought her down into the kitchen with me and my sister and had us in the corner. Then they took us into the family room and then they were raiding the house or whatever they were doing. And they eventually brought my dad down in handcuffs, probably about 15 to 20 minutes after they bust through the house.
I mean, what was it like for an 11-year-old little girl who kind of had no idea that any of this was happening to see her dad in handcuffs. And I think your mom got handcuffed too?
Yeah, because she was an adult. It was
Right.
traumatizing. Like my dad had all daughters. So we always grew up, we was like daddy's little girls. So I love my dad. That was like the man that I looked up to. He was like everything to me. So at that time, I wasn't thinking about what he did for the police to come in. I was more so worried about his safety and where he was going. So it was real traumatizing.
Okay. So after the police arrested your parents, what happened next? Because eventually your dad got convicted. But what happened like right after the
After they
situation?
arrested my dad, they took him out in handcuffs, and my mom had called her best friend, and my aunt came over and she picked us up, and we left and we went to her house. After all the drama was over with, we came back home later on that evening, and when we walked in the house, it was like a mess. Like all the drawers was out, clothes was everywhere, couch was flipped over, like the whole house was a wreck. So for me, I felt violated. Like these people then came and destroyed my home. I didn't look at it as, oh, my dad's a drug dealer and the feds came in to do that. I felt like they violated and they destroyed my home that I grew up in, and we was there all night and next day trying to put our house back together.
Okay. Your dad ended up getting 3 years?
Yeah, he did like 3.5 years in federal prison. Yes.
Okay. So after your dad gets locked up, are you guys still able to maintain your lifestyle, or was your dad being gone kind of messed you up financially?
No, nothing messed us up financially. My dad being gone, we still live the same lifestyle. Like nothing changed. I mean, the cars changed because they forfeited, all the fancy luxury cars. So before my dad left, he had went to the auction and bought my sister a car and bought my mom a car. So really the only thing that changed was the vehicles, but we still had our house, and it wasn't like my dad went to jail and they like money's tight or we can't do this. We still traveled. We still lived the same life all the way until my dad came home.
Okay. And your dad came home in 96, 97?
He came home after my sister graduated from high school. So it was probably around 96 because she was on
Okay.
her way to college when he came home.
Okay. So your dad comes back home and you're still in high school at the time?
When my dad came home, yeah, I was in high school, going to high school, about freshman.
Okay. And at one point, you started getting to some problems with your high school. You ended up getting kicked out.
Um, I really started being a little rebellious when my dad first got incarcerated. I really didn't know how to deal with him being gone. So I kind of used that energy into doing the wrong thing. I started drinking, started smoking weed, started hanging out, with the wrong kind of people. And I kind of really gave my mom, to be honest, a hard time. And it wasn't really directed towards her. But as a child, you really don't know how to express those type of emotions when you're going through stuff. So for me, I lashed out. I don't know if it was, I'm not going to say it was to seek attention, but I was doing I was doing things because I was upset that my dad was gone. So I kind of had I don't give a fuck about nothing attitude. Like I'm gonna do what I want. I don't give a damn. Like I said, I was getting high, smoking weed, drinking. So I kind of was a little rebellious. That's the way I got through my dad being gone.
Well, your dad didn't want you mixed up in the streets, but at one point, you started hanging out on the east side of Detroit and you started kind of hustling.
No, I had a boyfriend that I was dealing with at the time. But when I started hustling, like I had it's crazy how it's like the street stuff work. Like when you're like my dad was in the streets, so like all his friends was in the streets. So I grew up with all their kids. So once we got older, the sons that daddy was in the streets start following their father's footsteps. So they start doing their own thing. So like at one point in time, weed was a big thing in Detroit. Like a lot of dudes made money off of weed around that time. And a lot of my homies was getting weed from Arizona. So what I would do is me and probably a couple of my girlfriends will fly the money over to Arizona for them. And that they'll get the weed back however they got it. But we were the ones that would transport the money over there, so they could pay for their product. So that's when I start really kind of dipping into kind of like the street stuff by, I guess you could say money laundering, money when I was about 16 from Michigan to Arizona.
Okay, so you're taking flights from Michigan to Arizona at
Yeah,
16?
it was before 9/11. So it was like the airports wasn't like that. Like you wasn't going through no machine where they can look and see what was on your body. So really we just concealed the money on us. And we'll hop on a flight, go there, drop the money off and come back. It was like a 1-2 day turnaround trip. So I was making a couple $1,000s as a teenager when I really wasn't doing nothing at all. It was like not hard work.
Okay. Well, at one point, a situation happened with a shootout.
Now I was dating a guy, from the east side. My father's from the east side too. So I ended up meeting a guy that was from the east side, and we were over a friend's house, one of his friends' house. And when we were leaving out the house, I guess somebody was maybe plotting to come run up in that house or do something. So when we were coming out the house, I think that it kind of threw the people off because it was like 2 cars coming down the street with their lights off. So when they seen more than one person come out the house, it was 4 of us. It's kind of like when they was driving down the street, it was kind of a hesitant, and they kept going. But my boyfriend at the time, he kind of realized what was going on. So when he got in my car and we got in the car and we started following the people that was riding down the street. So when we was following the people that was riding down the street, they tried to separate. So one went this way and the other car pulled in the gas station. So my boyfriend pulled in the gas station too. And when he pulled in the gas station, it's like he hopped out the car and like all hell broke loose. And I was in the passenger seat, so I'm looking like a lot of people don't understand when you're are in certain situations, you really don't know how you're gonna respond in something like that. So when he hopped out the car, I was like stuck on stupid, looking like looking at what was going on. When he was like, get in the driver's seat. So when I got in the driver's seat, me and my girlfriend, we pulled off. So after that, we pulled off and I started driving and the other car that had veered off started following us. So I'm like, it's snowing outside. Like I'm flying to 100 down the side street. Eventually we lost the car. So we drove to our side of town. And about 20 or 15, maybe 20 or 30 minutes later, he called me like, I'm good. Come pick me up. And I went and picked him up and it was like, we was laughing about it.
Okay. So did the car actually get shot up?
I know it was gunshots exchange. But as far as what happened or if the car got shot up, I don't know because I pulled off.
Okay. And I mean, most people would be kind of traumatized by this, but you were actually kind of excited by it.
I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit at the time because I was young and I was like, oh, like I got me a guy that's not going to take no shit. So to me, that made me feel more safe being around him because I knew if I was around him, he wasn't going to let nothing bad happen to me.
Okay. Well, that situation happens. You end up graduating from high school,
Mm-hmm.
and then you move to Atlanta.
Yes.
Okay. And that was around 2000.
Yeah, I moved to Atlanta in 2000, the summer of 2000.
Now, around that time, some of the guys from, some of the BMF guys from Detroit were already expanding into Atlanta?
Yeah, see, the thing is, like, I have friends that I grew up with. And around that time, my friend that I grew up with, his mom was dating T from BMF. So to me, it wasn't BMF. It was my friend's mom's boyfriend. So we were all of age. So when we came down to Atlanta, I linked up with my friends and they were hanging, stepfather or whatever like that. So that's how we really got on the scene like that as far as like the party scene when it all started, evolving into BMF. Yes.
Okay. And you met Big Meech in 2001?
No, 2000.
2000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you didn't know Big Meech from Detroit at all?
We were young, so I knew who he was, but he wasn't Big Meech then. He was
Got it.
Meech. You know what I'm saying? And his brother was my friend's mom's boyfriend. You know what I'm saying? And like our families knew each other. If you get money in Detroit, everybody tends to know everybody. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like, oh, we're hanging with BMF or we're doing something like that. It was just I was hanging out with the people I know because me and my friend, we lived around the corner from each other.
Okay. But now you're in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
and the BMF guys are really setting up shop over here. And BMF was partying harder than anybody.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Celebrity, millionaire, billionaire, it doesn't matter. When BMF walked into the club, it was just, chaos.
You want to be people will want to be with them or come over in the section where we were at and leave the section where they were at. They could be with rappers, they could be with athletes, but they wanted to come where we was at because it was always a turn up. It was just like a ball.
Right. And I guess you actually flew with BMF to Miami to go to Puffy's New Year's party.
No, I was in Miami for New Year's. I did. I was down there. I was in Miami for New Year's that year when we were in Miami.
Okay. So here you are kind of hanging out with some of the BMF guys and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get introduced to one of the captains of BMF named Magic.
Yes.
Okay. So what was Magic's role in BMF?
See, everybody kind of like, before it was BMF, it was just a lot of guys who knew each other that was from different states who got money, you know? So BMF really didn't come with a name until they started doing the rap thing. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a name of the crew. It was just a lot of guys who knew each other, that hustled together, that knew each other for years. So my son's father, Magic, he was from St. Louis. So they were together as a crew, but where he got money was in St. Louis. That was his thing out there. That's what he did. That was his city. So that's what role he played.
Okay, but his plug was
BMF, they knew each other from like the 80s. Like before I was, probably when I was a kid, they all were really good friends.
Okay, so you were 19 at the time.
Right.
And Magic was 31.
Yes.
Almost like, repeating your mom and dad's situation all over again, like we all do.
You following your parents' footsteps.
Yep, me too. I feel where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys met, and did you guys kind of fall in love right away, or did it take a little while?
When we met, we were kind of like on the low with it. Like we all would be around each other. So we just was kicking it at first. We got along real good, and we were all in the same circle. So it started off with us just hanging out, being cool, doing our thing, and it evolved into a romantic relationship.
Okay, and Magic actually bought you a house in Atlanta for like $500,000.
Yeah, I had a house in Chamblee, actually.
Okay, and I guess he said, "I'm your daddy now. I'm going to take care of you."
What's crazy is he always had this thing. Like my dad had money, so even when I was down in Atlanta, my dad used to take care of me. So my dad was paying my bills. I had a new car. My dad did all that. He sent me money every month for allowance as well. So one thing that me and Magic used to always go back and forth with, like if we used to get into it, I used to be like, I don't care. You don't got to do it because my daddy going to do it. So I think that's something that really got underneath his skin. So when he decided that he was going to give me my own place, he was like, I'm not going to be dating you. I'm a grown man. You and your daddy keep, doing everything for you. So I called my dad when I was going to move into my house, and I was like, okay, Dad, I'm about to move into my house. And he was like, okay, now, you sure that's what you want to do? I was like, yeah. He said, so I'm just letting you know, you going with him, you going to be his responsibility, okay? I was like, I'm cool with it. And then after that, it kind of went from there.
Okay, and Magic and your dad actually met up.
Yeah, they were cool. My daddy liked them a lot.
Okay, so here you are. And do you understand at this point sort of the extent of Magic's role and BMF as a whole in terms of how big of an operation this is?
Yeah, I knew. I wasn't oblivious to it. I seen things, he had me around things, so I knew the magnitude of, what he was doing.
Right, because by this time, BMF was essentially the biggest drug dealing crew in America.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, it was.
Okay, and then that same year in 2003, some very important events started happening. The biggest of which was Puffy's bodyguard, Wolf, and his friend Rizzo got into it with Meech at a nightclub. They got into an argument over a girl that Wolf was, I think, was his girlfriend or something of that sort.
Mm-hmm.
The argument escalated when they went outside. A shootout happened.
Mm-hmm.
I think Wolf ended up firing the first shot. The BMF guys allegedly returned fire. Wolf and Rizzo got killed.
Mm-hmm.
And Big Meech was initially charged with the murders.
Yeah, but he was shot too.
He got shot himself, right? I think he got shot in the ass.
Yeah,
actually.
he got shot too.
Yeah, he got shot himself. He initially got charged with the murders. The charges were eventually dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember BMF actually flew me out right around that time.
Are you serious?
I was a DJ. I was one of the big mixtape DJs at the time. They flew me out to just hang out with them and check out Blue Da Vinci and party with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Big Meech was still on house arrest during this time.
He was on ankle monitor.
They invited me over to that big White House. You know, he had like the white Ferrari. I got to meet like his mom and all the other guys. But the whole thing of it, as I'm looking around, I'm like, this is just insanity right now, because there was the BMF billboards and like everyone had Cristal bottles and the ice sculptures, and you know the whole floor of like the hotel was rented out for us. And I'm like, yo, no one's selling any records here.
Let me ask you something. Where were what hotel were you staying at? Was it the Swiss over there by Lenox at the time? But it's the Western now. But was it the Swiss hotel over there by Lenox?
I think so.
Yeah, that was the spot at that time.
Yeah. That was the spot. I remember they had all the Magic City girls basically in the penthouse just for us. Like it was crazy. But I was looking around going like, okay, it's very clear what's happening here as a total outsider, right? As someone who's just meeting these guys for the first time, I'm like, clearly this is not record company money, right? And with the billboards and everything, I'm like, I think this is going to end really, really badly. And you know, with the murder of Wolf, that actually brought this big spotlight on BMF. You know, I mean, you can sell drugs and keep it quiet and the feds will more or less leave you alone. But once murders and the news and everything comes in, that murder ended up being a major turning point. And then by 2004, that's when all hell really started to break loose. Starting
with Magic. He was the first to get indicted out of St. Louis in 2004.
Right. So Magic's house gets raided by the feds.
He wasn't there.
He wasn't there. But when you guys heard about it, what happened?
Actually, the day it happened, because at that time I had my house. So he wakes me up and he gives me a call. I'm like, hello. He like, but it was like weird kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know how you can feel that something's not right? So he called me. I'm like, what's up? He like, you good? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. He's like, you good? You sure you good? And I'm like, yeah. He was like, go look outside, like, and make sure, you know, nobody's outside the house. So I'm like, all right. So I went out there, you know, I looked around and I'm like, it's nobody here. He's like, all right. He's like, come meet me. He's like, I'm gonna call you and tell you to come meet me and come where you want me to come. You know, I'm coming where I tell you to come meet me. So I end up meeting him at Houston's on Peachtree in the parking lot. And when I pulled up on him, he had let me know that the feds had raided his house in St. Louis, and that, you know, he had retained a lawyer, talked to his lawyer, but he was like, I'm not turning myself in. So that's when our little adventure started, with him being on the run.
Right, because after the St. Louis raid, then your house in Atlanta got raided.
No, it wasn't that. No, it didn't go. That the timeline didn't go like that.
Okay, sorry, explain.
When his house got raided in St. Louis, he ended up going on a run for about, that was in September. So what is that? He went on the run all the way until May. And May 11th, 2005, he was at my house in Atlanta. And the feds, I don't know how they knew where I lived, because when he was on a run, he used to pop in and out of Atlanta to take care of things. And he used to stay at my house. And nothing ever happened. So I don't know how they got the drop on where I live, but that particular morning, he had friends from St. Louis down here, and they were staying at my house. And the way my house is set up, it's like in Georgia, we don't have like underground basements. They have walkout basements. So my house was kind of like 3 levels with the top floor, the middle floor, and then the basement. So one of his friends had came and busted in my room and was like, yo, the police outside. And I'm like, what? Like, we were sleeping. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, the police outside? He like, yes, the police outside. So we instantly hop up, start throwing clothes on. And the way my bedroom is set up, you can look at the whole perimeter of my house from the backyard to the side to the front. So when we looked out the window, U.S. Marshals had the house surrounded. And I was like, oh, shit. You know, and I could tell the look on Magic's face that he's looking like we're looking at each other, like both together. I'm like, damn. So I called my father, you know, and I told my dad, like, yo, like, the police got the house surrounded because he knew he was on the run. You know, he knew what was going on in the situation. He was like, well, did they come in the house? And I'm like, no, they didn't come in. He said, don't open up the door. They don't have a search warrant. So we sat there. I swear, I don't know how long it was, but it just seemed like it was forever. And we sat there. I guess they was waiting to get a call or a judge to sign off on a search warrant. So we scrambling. We trying to put away stuff. We trying to hide jewelry. Like, we scrambling around the whole time while they're doing that. So Magic ended up going, it was like a little pull down thing in one of the bedrooms that led up to the attic. So he pulled the thing down and I closed it and he was in the attic part of the house. So when the police eventually came in, I'm like 3 or 4 months pregnant at the time with my son. When the police came in, they came straight up the steps and I threw my hands up like, I'm pregnant. You know, don't throw me on the ground like I'm pregnant. So they like, where's, they was calling him all type of stuff like Duran. They was calling him Lamont. They was calling him Wani. Like, they had a picture like, where is he at? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I just woke up. I'm pregnant. I've been sick all morning. I don't even know who's here. So at that time, they started getting everybody out the house. Everybody out the house. And when they got everybody out the house, they put us on the side of the house, handcuffed. And while they searched the house. And eventually, they found him. And that's when he was detained by the police.
Okay, and you're 3 months pregnant at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure the stress was just...
Yeah, because I went to jail too.
Off the meters. Aha. Okay, so you bonded out?
Huh?
Well, when you get locked up along with him...
Because they searched the house, and they had weed that they were smoking that was like around. So just to be petty, you know, they knew I was pregnant. And probably just to give a hard time because of the situation, they arrested me and charged me with possession of marijuana because it was my house. So my mom, when I called my dad, he had put my mom on a flight anyway to come down and check on me. So by the time they went through the house, raided the house, and they took me to jail, I was probably only there for like 30 or 45 minutes, and my mom was there to buy me out.
Okay. And at this point, Magic gets no bond?
No bond.
Right, because he was on the run and so forth,
yes.
So he's obviously
and he was facing risk. 20 years in prison, so they knew if they let him out, he's probably going to run again.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm not quite sure what the timeline is around this time, but by 2005, the full-blown BMF Fed raids started.
Yeah, he started off, like I said, he got indicted in September of 2004. They caught him May 11th, 2005. And then starting in October of 2005, that's when everything started falling apart.
Right. 30 BMF members get arrested.
Right
around the same time. They seized $3 million in cash. The feds claimed that BMF was responsible for moving 2,500 keys of cocaine a month throughout the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So then Magic gets extradited back to St. Louis.
Mm-hmm. He got extradited back to St. Louis when he fought his case, and he ended up getting sentenced to 19 and a half years in 2006.
Right. He took a plea deal.
Mm-hmm. He took a
plea. For 19 and a half years.
Yep.
What would have happened if he didn't take the plea deal?
If he went to trial, he would have got life.
So he was facing life?
Yes, he was facing life.
What exactly was he being charged for?
Conspiracy to distribute cocaine.
Okay,
5 kilograms or more. But it's 5 kilograms or more, and then the amount increases your time.
By the time you took the plea deal, you already had the baby or no?
When he took the plea deal, yeah, I had my baby December 2005.
Okay. So you have the baby in December 2005.
Mm-hmm.
He takes the plea deal. He starts his prison sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And then a tragedy happens on September 9th of 2006.
Mm-hmm. He would, see, when I was pregnant, I was still going back and forth to St. Louis to see him. Even when I had the baby, he was in the county. I'll go back and forth to see him with the baby. He ended up getting transported. When he got designated to the facility he was going to do his time at, it ended up being down here in Atlanta at the Atlanta USP. It's a medium now, but it was a USP then. That's for like max high inmates. And he got there in July. And I was able to go on a visit, and visit him. And he was able to see the baby in person. And then 2 months later, he I had people that was in the prison with him at the time, so I kind of got the story from the people that was there with him. And one of our good close friends said he had seen him on his way to his visit. He had a visit. So he said, when he seen him, he's like, oh, I'm going to holler at you, when I get back from off my visit. So he said when he was in his visit, that after the visit was over, the prison was on lockdown. So he said in his head, he thinking somebody got stabbed, because in that type of prison, is somebody always fighting or getting stabbed. So usually the facility is locked down. But he said after they was released, guys told him that his friend died, which was Magic. And basically he said that Magic was in his cell and was having issues breathing. And they were locked in. So his cellie was bamming on the door trying to get medical staff attention to come render aid to him. And I don't think that they had a registered nurse on site. And they this is what they're telling me, is that when he was having complications breathing, the nurse didn't know how to put the tube down his throat, to open up the airways. And he ended up going into a cardiac arrest, and he ended up passing away.
Yeah, I mean, your son was 9 months old.
Yeah, he was 9 months. Mm-hmm.
So he never really got to meet his dad properly.
No.
And that puts you into a really deep depression.
It did. That's like, I felt bad. Like, I already felt, it's like, with him going to prison, it was cool. Not cool, but I was okay, because I'm like, I can go see him. He can still have that relationship with his father, on visits and things like that. So when he passed away, I just felt so bad. Like, he didn't get a chance to have that opportunity to have his father in his life. And it was just like, I guess, a combination of everything. It's like when you're going through life-changing experiences in your life, especially like what I went through, like, boom, he went on a run. Oh, I found out I was pregnant. Boom, he gets indicted. I mean, he gets arrested. Boom, he got 20 years. Boom, he goes to jail. And boom, he's dead. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, when you going through all that stuff so fast, I think that when he passed away, everything just came crashing down on me. And I kind of was in a dark space for a long little while because of that.
Well, then that next year, 2007, Big Meech and Southwest T plead guilty to running a continuous criminal enterprise. They both ended up taking 30-year plea deals.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially BMF was a wrap at that point.
It was.
The feds completely dismantled it, arrested everybody, seized everything they could. Mm-hmm. And, the legend of BMF would kind of live on, but the actual coup itself was over.
Yes, correct.
Now, I guess before Magic got locked up, you met a guy named JT.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess after Magic went to prison, you guys started getting a little closer?
Yeah, I had met him through, I got good friends of mine that's like family. They from Chicago. And I have run into him a couple times. How if you see somebody, it's, hey, blah, blah, blah. And you interact, but it really wasn't anything like that. He was trying to pursue me, but at the time I was with Magic, so I really wasn't interested in that. I had, when I was pregnant with my son, he had reached out to my girlfriend and gave her money for me. Like, here, give this to her for her baby shower. He gave her like maybe $5,000 or something like that she sent to me. And he was like, tell her to get what she needs, for her son or whatever, due to the circumstances, which was cool. I took it. It was cool, but it wasn't nothing like that. But after Magic had passed away, we had reconnected. I'm trying to see, where did I see him at? I think it was in Atlanta. I came down here for something and we ended up reconnecting. And we were just really, we was cool. It was cool, hang out, little stuff like that. That was really basically it. But it ended up evolving into, something else as well.
Well, then at one point, JT asked you to move 30 kilos of cocaine.
I think he did. He came to Detroit to visit. And now, how you recollect back on things, you don't see things when it's going on, but when you got a chance to sit back and recollect on things, I came to Detroit. And me, showing hospitality, I took him out in the city, I took him out on the town, but I think that he peeped the type of people that I interacted with. You know, he a street guy. So he's looking to see the people that I'm out slapping fives with, or that I'm introducing him to, or that he sees me interacting with. So after he went back home, he ended up calling me. It was like, hey, you think you can, it's kind of like he was the type of person like he try to put you on blast. To see if you who you say you are, or he was one of them people to try to put you on the spot. So he eventually ended up sending me, he's like, I'm gonna send you something down there. Let me see if you can get rid of it. And he ended up having somebody drop 30 kilos. Now, me on the other hand, yeah, I was involved in the streets, but I dealt with street dudes. I never got my hands dirty, and I never was in that life. Like, I was always a part of it because it was a part of my life, but I never dealt hand in hand and never did nothing like that. So basically, when he did that, I just called up a couple people that I knew that I was close to, like, hey, I got this. And at the time, it was a drought. So it was nothing around. So it was easy because the people I called was like the only people in the city who had something. And they got rid of it really fast. So I called him back like, yeah, I got your money. And he was looking like, you got my money? I'm like, yeah, you got to send somebody to come get it. You come get it. So after that, it started becoming a daily routine.
Well, I mean, 30 keys. I mean, they were going for what, 17,000 back then?
No, it was a drought. They was going for 36,500.
Okay, so 30 times $36,500 is $1.1 million.
Yeah.
So you have $1.1 million, and now you're officially drug dealing. You can't just say, oh, my boyfriend's doing it and I didn't know. Like, you're actually getting your hands dirty.
Involved in it. Even though, let me tell you what's crazy and how my mind was set up then. And I know it might sound weird to you, but you know how, like, when you're involved in something for so long, or if that's something that's a part of your life, in my eyes, I ain't feel like I was doing nothing wrong. Legally, now that I went through the legal process, I know I was part of a conspiracy. But for me at the time, I was just like, well, shit, I ain't do nothing but get something and give it to the people I know. I wasn't out in the streets hand in hand selling stuff with people. All they did was bring me back the money. So to me, I felt like my role was minimum because I wasn't on the streets selling it to everybody. You get what I'm saying? I just felt like, okay, I'm giving it to my people when they gonna give me my money back. So to me, I really didn't feel like I was in harm's way.
Well, after that, you and JT actually started to expand the operation.
It was just more frequent. The runs was more frequent. Let's put it that way. It really wasn't expanded because it never left outside of Detroit. But it started coming in more frequently than it was at the beginning. So maybe instead of once a week, it might be twice a week.
Right. And each of these runs was 30 kilos.
Yeah, every time.
So, and you guys would make about $1 million every time you're
that would be
this.
That's not all our money, but that would be what was left. I mean, that would be the profits from what you sold. See, people don't understand. Like, in the streets, it's not like, okay, it costs this much and that money all yours. You still got to pay the people back who gave it to you. You get what I'm saying? But every time, that's how much money I was sending back to him, was about 1 point something.
Okay. And JT's plug, was it El Chapo?
I mean, once I start going through stuff like that, that's where it was coming from. I don't know if he dealt with him directly, but when they start breaking it down, like, I didn't even know. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I knew what we were doing, but one thing about me, I don't ask questions when it don't have nothing to do with me. And sometimes it's best not to know stuff that you don't need to know. When I realized where the drugs was coming from, I was in prison. And I was sitting in the TV room watching some special. You know how CBS or something has those documentary specials on things? And I'm sitting on there and I'm watching a CBS special and I was looking like, damn. And I was looking at some of the people on there like, damn, because there was people that was associated with him. So then after I was in prison, that's when I realized who he was getting his stuff from.
Okay. And then, once again, JT and your dad started to get close also.
Yeah, because my dad was like this. My dad, he didn't know at first when I started doing stuff that I was doing it. But it was starting to be so much that I had to tell my dad. You know, it was just like, cause my fear was when you dealing with stuff like that in those quantities of drugs, it's gonna be trouble that follow you. And living in Detroit, my fear was that somebody will find out and try to do something to me. Dudes will kidnap you. Dudes will hold you for ransom. They'll throw your ass in the truck like it ain't nothing for some money. You know what I'm saying? So I end up telling my dad. So what my dad did was he stepped in place to remove me from this such situation to protect me. So they developed their own relationship because he felt like he was protecting me from being, taking me out of harm's way.
Well, I mean, along the way, before, everything fell apart, as you're moving 30 kilos and all this cash, this type of game comes with a lot of problems. Kilos get lost, kilos get seized, kick doors happen and robberies happen. Like you said, kidnappings happen. The police steal stuff. Money disappears, people get killed. Were you, and the cartel want their money. They don't care about what happened along the way. If you owe them $1 million, they expect that $1 million.
Exactly.
So along the way, before things fell apart, were you losing some of the packages or some of the money, or
nope.
It was all smooth sailing the whole way?
It was all smooth sailing. No losses, no nothing.
Okay. And then you decide to bring in one of your college friends, AJ.
I didn't bring her in. Now, I had a girlfriend that I was cool with. And for me, I'm going to tell you what type of girl I was. Like I said, I never was nobody that sold drugs, but I always was affiliated to a big time guy that did sell drugs. So for me, I used to go to Chicago. I used to bring her with me, but I was trying to put her on one of his friends. Like, okay, cool. When we come up here, you can kick it with one of his boys. We chill for the weekend. Boom. You go back, But one time she did come to JT. I think her mom and her dad was getting a divorce and her mom was encountering some financial difficulties. And she had cut into him like, hey, do you think, I can take a couple trips, to make me some money? She was like, I think I'm a good candidate because I'm in college. I'll have my book bag. I don't have no record. She's like, I think it'll be smooth. Right then and there, I was like, I was like, I don't think that's no good idea. And I told her, when you ride like this, you ride with your life. Like if you get in that car and you driving them drugs, you riding with your life. It's like you're playing Russian roulette. And she insisted on. And I told them, whatever y'all do, that's on y'all. That don't got nothing to do with me. I don't agree with it, but he the head man in charge. So if you choose to deal with her, that's on you. And as a friend, I felt so uncomfortable with her doing that. I used to follow her there with the money, follow her back with the drugs, follow her there with the money, follow her back with the drugs, because that's something that didn't really sit well with me. That I took the extra initiative to drive there and drive back and follow her because it just didn't feel right.
Okay. Well, at one point, as she's driving with 30 kilos of cocaine in her trunk, she gets pulled over.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the video of what happened. And, the police said, hey, can we search your car? And she's like, sure, go ahead.
Was that the dumbest thing somebody could have did?
I'm
just saying, honestly with you.
It was insanity. Like when I saw it, it was like, no, you cannot search the car.
I would have fought for my life.
Whatever you do not search this car.
Mm-hmm.
But when she gave him, so they basically searched the car without a search warrant because she gave him permission.
Mm-hmm.
So then she gets busted with 30 kilos of cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
And she starts to cooperate.
Yes. But let me tell you, let's rewind back to that day that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, like I said, I follow her there. I follow her back, okay? This particular morning, we stayed at the same hotel. And I'm asleep, right? She calls me. She had already left and got on the road without even telling me, trying to rush back home because she had a class or something that she was trying to get to. So when she called me, she was already on the road. So I'm like, damn, you left? She was like, yeah, I left, but I'm good. I'll keep you posted, yada, 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 yada. Okay, cool. But all that day, I just had a weird feeling. I don't know. I can't describe the feeling, but you know how they say your gut don't ever lie? I just had a weird feeling about that. even after she started cooperating, agreed, to keep going, to basically like set us up, the whole while we're driving back to Detroit from Chicago, I kept telling him, like, let's not meet her. Let's meet her tomorrow. Because it was getting kind of late because we had got a late start on getting on the road. And he like, no, let's just go ahead and get it out the way. That way we don't have to do nothing tomorrow. We can chill. We could relax. Yada, 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 But I kept saying, I don't know. For some reason, I didn't want to meet her. Let's just put it that way. And I really regret not following my gut because that ended up being really very, very detrimental to me in my life. I don't know if I didn't go meet her, if things would have went different. You know what I'm saying? I can't dwell on the shoulda, woulda, coulda. But that day, I just didn't feel right about meeting up with her.
Well, when you met up with her and you picked up the 30 kilos, did the cops swoop in at that point?
What's so crazy is, this is how I know I should have just followed the signs. I called her, I was like, okay, I'm here. She's like, okay, the gate code is this because you got to get in the gate. So I pushed the gate code, boop, 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 boop. The gate didn't open. So she's like, call this phone. Come to find out, I didn't call that phone, but she was trying to have me call the police phone that was with her. But I ended up pushing the code to the gate again, and it ended up letting me in. So when it let me in, she had hopped in the backseat of my car with me. And when she got in the backseat, we smoking. So we smoking a blunt or whatever in the car. And I turned around and I looked at her. I was like, yo, we not going to do this no more. Like, after today, you're not going to drive no more. And she was like, okay, that's cool. It's cool. I was like, it's just not, what it's going to be. And she got out the car. She was like, okay, I love you. I was like, all right, I love you too. She get out the car. She walk in the house. I had a Range Rover at the time. I hop on my truck. I get in the car that she was driving with the drugs in it. Soon as I got in the car, I couldn't even start the car up. Soon as I got in the car, I don't know. It's just like, I don't even know where these people came from. It was so many cops that like swarmed down the car. They yanked me out the car, threw me on the ground. It was just terrible. But they did the same thing to JT, and we was on the ground on our stomachs with our handcuffs. I looked at him like with the side eye, like, motherfucker, I told you. Like, I had to give him the look like, I told you. Like, I just felt something wasn't right in my spirit with that whole situation. But I still didn't know or put two and two together. I put two and two together when we got in the back of the police cars and she got in the back of a Tahoe. And I'm like, like, you getting in the back of a Tahoe. So when we went to the state police station, that's where I guess they had their little center at or whatever. I seen her because she was sitting on a bench handcuffed and they had put me in a cell. So when I came out the cell, I had to walk past her and she couldn't even look at me. She had her head down like that. That's when I knew, I knew it was her.
Right. She cooperates. And I guess at the bond hearing, you find out that JT is actually married and his wife shows up at the bond hearing.
My mom and my sister told me and my lawyer told me that they was like, yo, he married. I'm like, I didn't know he married. I knew he had a baby mom or whatever. And they like, no, like his wife, she at court. Like we seen her at court. And I was like, really? They was like, yeah, she here. So I was like, damn, it was just like a double whammy. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. And AJ, she's cooperating with the police. And she's saying all the money's yours.
Yeah.
You're mentioning JT.
Yeah. She said everything is mine. And that's what was kind of confusing because, okay, I could say my part. But like, I think that JT was already on the radar. So when they was questioning her, it's like they wanted her to tell them like him because they can get him right then. They end up letting him go and keeping me because she said everything was mine. And then they didn't catch him until like months later.
Right. You guys both bond out, and I guess JT wants to keep selling drugs, but you're not feeling it anymore.
Mm-mm. I was on bond, so I wasn't feeling nothing no more. Even though he was in communication with me as far as like, like, oh, I'm gonna give you X amount of money. And it was all bullshit. You know how somebody try to coerce you or, I guess he was trying to coerce me with money thinking like so I'll stay true to him. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it's nothing I could do. I got caught. So it ain't even nothing about staying true. I'm guilty, so I'm in trouble either way it go. You know what I'm saying? So after that whole experience with the wife and stuff, I kind of stopped having contact with him like that.
Well, while you're out on bond in March of 2009, you get a call that your parents' house just got raided by the DEA.
Mm-hmm.
And your dad gets arrested.
They took him in, but they didn't detain him. So it's like they raided him. He didn't get charged with nothing. They took him in like for questioning, and then he got released.
Okay, but now he's facing charges as well.
Not yet. Mm-mm.
Not yet.
Nope.
Okay, so what happens next?
Nothing. See, what the feds did was, I guess, like, I think they kind of like, even with my son's father, they tried to do that to me. Like, they start questioning Magic about my dad when he was in custody. Like, oh, so you're, we know her dad, Charles Davis. We know you was working with her dad. And he's like, dude, that's a granddad. Like, I never did nothing with that man, because he had called me from jail and told me, like, yo, these dudes down here asking about Pops, you know? Like, I don't know what they asking about Pops for. I told him, basically, like, that man is a granddaddy. I ain't never did no business with him and something like that. So it's like with the feds, they looking at me like I always mess with the top dope dude. So they feel like my dad is always going to be a piece to that puzzle because of me. You know what I'm saying? So they were really just fishing at the time. So they released him. But usually, if anybody know how the feds work, if they come raid your house, they got information. They just waiting to get you. So my dad's not slow. So he started preparing himself, you know what I'm saying, for what was to come as far as retaining an attorney and things like that. My dad didn't get indicted until January. That January.
Okay. Got it. Okay, because on May 11th of
I was in
2009,
prison.
Yeah, you turn yourself in
Mhm.
and you got a 9-year sentence.
9 to 20. Mm-hmm.
9 to 20. But then the feds try to get you
Mm-hmm.
for a different charge.
The conspiracy with my father.
The conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Right. And that's when your father was charged
Yep.
and got indicted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then around that time, JT got hit with a drug conspiracy charge
Out
in
of
Chicago, dealing with some high-ranking members of a drug cartel.
Mm-hmm.
And then he became an informant.
Yeah, he did some stuff out there with them people out there where he was at. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess with JT's cooperation, half of the top guys in Chicago got taken down.
See, the thing is, I got people from there. So I just hear stories because I was in jail. I'm not from there. But I have a good friend that was his co-defendant, and he came to his sentencing and got on the stand at our friend's sentencing to try to get him more time to get time taken off his sentence. So he was around there just doing whatever he was, I guess, to try to minimize his time that he was facing.
Right, but he implicated your 67-year-old father.
Mm-hmm. That's what put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Right, as well as you. So
Mm-hmm.
he cooperated against you.
Yep.
How did that feel to have this guy cooperate against you and your father?
I felt more so by my dad. Like with me, I'm the type of person, I'm kind of a realist. So I kind of knew after everything that I was going through, the situation I put myself in. But when it came to my father, that it just hit a little different. You know what I'm saying? Because my father's intention wasn't never to deal with that person. So I kind of felt like I took the blame, because I felt like if I never bring this man around, my daddy wouldn't have never got in trouble. So I felt like I brought trouble into my family. So when my dad got indicted, it made me feel bad, not for myself, but more so for my father, because I feel like I brought this person around that, kind of tore my family apart.
I mean, what ultimately happened to JT? Did he have to serve time, or
Yeah,
did
he served time. He ended up getting 13 years. He'll be home soon. I think he comes home like in the next 2 years, maybe.
So with all that cooperation, he still got 13 years.
Yep, he got 13 years.
Did you ever speak to him after that or communicate in any type of way?
Mm-mm.
No.
Nope.
Okay. So now you and your dad are facing all this time, and ultimately you guys both decided to take a plea deal.
Yeah.
And you got 10 years?
Yep, and he got 8.
He got 8.
Yep.
And he was he 67, 68 at the time?
Yeah, he was around that age at the time. And what's crazy was around that time, I was still incarcerated fighting my charges. He was out and he was sick and nobody told me. My dad had got diagnosed when he was fighting his case with early stage dementia. That's like a form of Alzheimer's, affects your brain. So he was supposed to go to a medical facility when he first got locked up, and they sent my dad to USP Virginia in West Virginia. So when he was there, he wasn't getting the proper medical treatment. His health declined a lot while he was incarcerated. My mama fought, I can tell you, my mama fought tooth and nail, and eventually he did get sent to a medical facility in Minnesota. But after 3 years of incarceration, his health really, 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 really declined. And the social worker at the prison had told my mom to put in paperwork for him to get the compassionate release. And what that is in a federal system, they have something called the compassionate release. So if you have a debilitating disease that progressively gets worse and doesn't get better, you can file for that for you to go home for the remainder of the little time that you have left here on this earth. Because they don't want to pay for your medical expenses. They don't want to do that. So they'll let you go home to your family, for them to take care of you for the little bit of time you had left. And that's what they did to my father.
Well, you were facing a whole other federal case, but ultimately the judge recognized that it was kind of the same case as the state case. And
yeah, it was some bullshit because they were so thirsty to like convict. So when I was on bond, that's when my house got raided. So my lawyer told my judge, like, hey, like, the feds just raided her house. It's looking like they're doing an investigation and trying to implement her with the drugs that she's getting charged with now into something else. And he said that if it comes out that she's getting indicted for these same drugs, but in a conspiracy, would you be willing to drop her state case if she does federal time? And the judge agreed if my time was more than what I was facing with the state, which it was, because I end up pleading out to 120 months, which is 10 years. And then my front with the state was 9.
Got it. So you could have potentially done 20 years.
Yes. Yeah. But it ended up turning out better for me. I was happy to go to do Fed time because in Michigan, they have truth in sentencing. And in Michigan, you do day for day. You do every day of your time, and then you go up for parole. And then it's up to them to decide if they want to give you parole or not. In federal prison, I was able to do the drug program, which is called RDAP. That takes a year off your sentence, which completes it. And then you can get 6 months halfway house. So if you do the halfway house in a year, that's like 18 months cut off your time. And then you do 85% of your time. So you get like 47 good days a year. So it kind of worked out for the best.
Well, in 2015, like you had mentioned, your dad gets compassionate release.
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 months later, he ends up passing away.
Yep. 6 months later, he died.
You're still in prison at the time.
I watched my dad die on the computer screen in prison. Like where I was at, like the prison I was at in the federal system, when they get new things, like they put it through a pilot program. So around that time, they had put a pilot program for video visits. Like you log on, you pay for it, but I think it might be like $25 or something, but you pay for it, but you get 30 minutes on a video visit. And you can schedule them. You could probably do 2 or 3 a week. I don't quite remember. But when my dad came home and I seen that he was getting sick, I started scheduling them more frequently. And this particular day, every time I have a visit, I always come home like, don't forget to log on the computer at, 6:30 or whatever. And this particular day, I had called my mom like, hey, like, don't forget 6:30 is the visit. And she was like, Brandi. I'm like, yeah. She was like, the nurse is here and it's not looking good for dad. She was like, his kidneys is failing, and we don't know, how much time, dad has left with us. So walking to the visit, I already was feeling away. But mind you, I had just seen him 2 days prior, like dementia kind of, like he stopped talking, you know what I'm saying? Like eventually he stopped walking. He stopped eating, he was having problems swallowing. So when I went to see him this day, I don't know, my girlfriend Joy, one of my good friends in prison, she seen how upset I was. And she was like, I'm going to go with you. on my visit, my video visit. And usually you're not supposed to have people back there with you if you don't have a visit scheduled. But this particular day, it was like one girl in there in that back room where we have our visits. And my girlfriend came in with me. So when I logged on the computer, everybody was at my mom's house. Like all my childhood friends, like all his grandkids, like everybody who meant something in our family was at the house. So I kind of was looking like, and I was like, let me see my dad. Like I want to see him. And when I seen him, he looked totally different than he did 2 days ago. Like he was like laying there, his eyes was halfway open, like his mouth was kind of like gapped open. He just looked so little and frail, and it's like I lost it. Like it just hit me real hard. I don't know if it was like the guilt or everything I was going through, but like I just started wailing like uncontrollably, like I couldn't. And then I was talking to him on the computer and I'm like, Dad, I love you. I'm sorry, like for everything I did, like everything that I wanted to tell him, I told him. And it's so crazy how life works. Like tears start coming down his eyes when I was talking to him, like tears, like it was just tears coming down his face. And I watched him take his last breaths, like 8 minutes into my visit.
Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss. That's a tough one.
It was.
It's a tough one.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And then to watch my son see that same thing, and I can't hug him or comfort him or be there for him because my father was the only son. The only father my son knew. He called my daddy daddy. He don't remember his dad. Like when he was a baby, the first year of my son's life, I was there when I was pregnant. I stayed with my parents, and I stayed with them until my son turned 1. So when he looked at my daddy, his first words was dada to him. Like he didn't call him pops like the rest of the grandkids. He called him daddy. So for me to see him lose his father and then I'm not there to console him, that made me feel even worse.
Well, that next year in 2016, you get released on May 3rd.
Yeah. Today. Yeah, May 3rd.
Today, exactly.
Yeah, it's my 6-year anniversary.
How much time did you serve at that point?
7.5 years.
And when you get out, your son is 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So you miss, just a lot. His first day in kindergarten,
first
him
tooth,
learning first tooth,
riding a bike,
learning how to read and count.
First football game.
Yeah, first everything. Yeah.
I missed it all.
How tough was it to try to really become a mom again to this child who didn't really get to see you as much as he should?
For me, I got to thank my mom and my sisters. It take a village because never once did they make me feel like an outcast. Even if I was in prison, if my son got in trouble, I'll call my mom. She's like, let me tell you what your son did. Now, what do you want his punishment to be? She always kept me involved. So even though I wasn't there physically, she never made me feel less of a mother. We made decisions together when it came to my son. If she felt he got in trouble, she'll let me tell her what to do as far as punishment, and between my mom and my sisters, they rotated, taking turns to bring my son to come see me. So for me, if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be as close as I am with my son because when I was in prison, it's a lot of girls who didn't see their kids at all. It was a lot of girls who didn't know where their kids was at. Some of them lost their kids in the system, so I felt very grateful and very blessed that I had that village and that family around me that gave me the opportunity to still keep that bond strong between me and my son. And even when I came home, he never act different. Like people tripped out, even my probation officer. Like my first time I went to go visit my probation officer when I got released, I had my son with me when I had to report. And she just watched the interaction. And she knew my family because she was my dad's probation officer when he got released. So she already had a relationship established with my family. And when she seen me on the visit, she told me straight up, and me and my probation officer got along really good, And she told me, she's like, I'm not gonna lie. She's like, when I went to go visit your mom, at your dad, when I went to go see your dad, and I went to your mom's house, she said, I seen your son. She said, I'm not gonna lie. She said, I thought your mama was still gonna have your son. She didn't think that I was gonna come home and go right into mommy mode, and she just had to, she gave me my respect. Like, I really respect that. Like, that you took your son and got that burden off your mom and you doing everything you need to do to step in as a mother. And she said, it looks like you haven't missed a beat. Like, people would never think when they seen the interaction with me and my son that I was gone from his life for that long period of time.
Well, now you're out of prison, but you're still on probation, right?
I got off probation.
No. I don't mean now, but I mean as you're coming out of prison.
I'm not on probation. Yeah. When I got out of prison, I had 5 years supervised release.
5 years.
I end up getting off in 2.5 for doing everything that I was supposed to do. They released me early, so I was on probation for 2.5 years.
And at this point, you can't go back to hustling, laundering, anything else like that. You get a job at a car dealership.
Yep. It's so crazy because that was the first job I ever had in my life. And I had a good friend of mine and he was in a halfway house. We ended up meeting in the halfway house. And I was like, where you going? Because you like in the halfway house, it's like you can get these passes, but you got to get the passes for like job search and things like that. But you be wanting to get out because just you in a free world. So you be wanting to get out and stuff like that. So I had a friend, I'm like, where you going? He's like, I'm going for a job. I was like, find me a job. And we end up working at the car dealership together. And when I was working there, to me, it was like a hustle. Instead of selling drugs, you still selling the product, which was a car. So it's the same hustle, different product, And I end up being really, really good at it. And my first year home, like I looked at my W-2s and I made almost $90,000 while on house arrest. So I was able to get my car. On house arrest, I got me a new car. I got me an apartment. I furnished my apartment all while still being on house arrest, working at that job. And I ended up building a rapport with one of the owners. And, I gradually moved up in the company. You know what I'm saying? And I really am thankful for that because a lot of people look at your past and you having a felony and they'll look at you like they don't want to deal with you. And they gave me an opportunity and a second chance. And that was really the thing that was able for me to stay on the right path and change my life for the better.
Right. But the money is not as fast. You got to pay taxes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. When I seen them take them taxes out my check, I was looking like, oh, this is my check. And then when you see how much taxes they take, I'm like, well, damn. But to be honest with you, Vlad, I'm going to be real with you. After you go through all the stuff that I've been through, and when I sat down in that prison, after all that stuff was over and you able to sit down after you didn't close that chapter of your life and you doing your time, I don't know for everybody else, but for me, that was a game changer. Everybody think it's cool and shit the rollies, the chains, the cars, all that shit cool. It's cool when you got it. But when you sitting in that motherfucking prison by yourself and all them people that act like they was your fucking friend and they ain't send you a fucking dollar and the only people you can rely on is that them close little people in your family, it goes to show you that game don't got no love for nobody. People need to think about that before they do stuff. Because at the end of the day, when all that glitz and glamour is gone and you left with nothing, you're going to see who really in your corner and who there for you because it ain't going to be many.
Yeah, I mean, it's a story that I hear over and over again. I've interviewed some of the biggest kingpins of all time, and the story's always the same. Mm-hmm. When I went in, we put money, with some of my people. I put my property in other people's names.
Yep.
And by the time I got out, the money was gone.
Nothing.
The property was still in their names. They didn't want to sign it back over to me. And the one thing, that I want to ask you, and this is something that me and Freeway Ricky talked about. When he initially got busted, it was his plug that turned against him and testified against him. And he was just so angry when he first got to prison because he got life in prison, which he eventually got to overturn. But at first, the first few years was just anger. And then at one point, he just realized that the drug game comes with the snitching. So if you want to get in the drug game, you should assume, not be surprised, but just assume that you will be snitched on. And once he accepted that, then he was able to kind of get a bearing on where he needs to go in his life. And then that's when he started to research and eventually, get get his life sentence overturned. When you first went in, because obviously you're very angry over AJ snitching on you, JT snitching on you. But at one point, did you kind of come to the conclusion that, something, I decided to go in the drug game by myself. No one put a gun to my head and said, dealing these drugs. So when these people turned against me, that just comes with it. And I can't be mad at them. I have to be mad at myself.
That happened to me probably like, let's say, I think that more so for me, when I went to prison, I was a little bitter. I'm not going to lie. But I had to start talking to other people, other women, hearing their story. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have a prison mom. I'm still me. That's still my heart. Like, I'm still in touch with her today. We call her Mama. Her name Matilda. And I heard her story. And you know, people always think that they going through something and it's just the worst thing in the world until you talk to somebody else and you hear their story. And she was doing 30 years in prison. 3 of her sons was doing life in prison. And that lady was getting charged with money laundering at first. And when she went testify against her sons, they charged her with the same things they charged her sons with and gave her 30 years. And she had 10 kids. So she had 10 kids and left 7 kids behind. And when I started hearing other people's story and things that they was going through, I had to rejoice and be thankful for my little 10 that I got. Because she had 30. She went to prison when she was 40-something. She ain't come home until she was in her 60s. You know, so for me, my turning point was meeting other people and hearing their stories and what they've been through. So it made me look at my situation like it's not as bad because it could have been worse. You know, so I didn't want to go in there and do my time all angry and disgruntled. So what I did was I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. When I come in here, I'm going to work on being a better person than I was when I came in. I want to leave and be a better woman. So when I was in prison, I took every damn class you can think of. I went to cosmetology school. I took a firefighter program. So I'm a certified firefighter. I'm a licensed cosmetologist. I took Spanish classes. I took everything because I wanted to do my time. I didn't want my time to do me. And it ended up being a good thing for me to have that mindset because I came out a better person.
Well, Brandi, quite a story and quite a roller coaster that you went through. And I think the most important thing is that there's a girl somewhere who's looking up to all the local drug dealers in her neighborhood. She doesn't want to deal with the guys in her high school because they're all broke and bummy like her. She wants the older guy with the nice car and the jewelry. And thinking that once she gets to that her life is going to be smooth sailing and all her dreams are going to come true. And I think that your story really illustrates, here's what happens on the flip side of that. Yes, you will get to ball out and have fun, but here's what happens afterwards.
Yep, and then it's crazy because I met a lot of girls too, Vlad, in there that didn't do nothing. I got a girlfriend, worked a job. Her boyfriend was a drug dealer, yes, but she went to work. You could put a kilo of cocaine in front of her face and she wouldn't even know what it was. And she got 6.5 years in federal prison because of money laundering, because they said that she lived her life off drugs proceeds from her significant other at the time. So she was guilty of money laundering and got 6.5 years and went to jail when her baby was like 2 months. You know, so I try to, like, I speak to girls, you know what I'm saying? And I speak to young girls and I speak to women and I try to just talk to them and enlighten them, like you said, on the flip side, because everything that's glitz and glamour, you're not thinking about the consequences that come with that type of lifestyle. Because this girl's going to jail for 6.5 years for just spending their boyfriend's money. They didn't even sell drugs. You know?
Yeah. I mean, the RICO Act will pull everyone and anyone into that situation so they could get that big bust, you know, and they throw football numbers at everyone so everyone cooperates and everyone gets dragged into it. And ultimately, you know, dealing drugs, I remember, you know, we just interviewed D Meeks, who was part of the 50 Boys, you know, Big Meech and Southwest T's original crew. And, you know, he said flat out that being a drug dealer is the worst job in the world.
The drug dealer is the worst job in the world. See, what the drug dealers show you right now is, oh, I got all the women, the pretty women. Oh, you get the best women in the world. You get the best cars. You get the flyest suits and all that. But you don't see that guy that's laying in your garage at night So, you know, who trying to wait on you. You don't see them trying to kidnap their family. You don't see people shooting at you. You don't see people trying, you know, and they do anything, putting bombs under your car and all type of, you don't see the stress and the, you know, the jealousy. The jealousy is what mess up the dope game, because you could be right here and selling drugs and have a Benz, and you could be the other guy on the other side selling dope with a Lamborghini, and the guy with the Lamborghini hate the guy with the Benz. And y'all making the same money. Why he hating it? Because this woman like him better than her. The dumbest shit in the world.
It is.
Yeah, there's some money to it, but you're always watching your back.
Stress.
With you know, the stress of it all, always looking over your shoulder, always getting shot at, dealing with both, you know, people who are competing against you, your own crew, and the police.
Yeah.
And the bigger you get, the bigger the penalties come with it.
And the more problems.
The more problems come with it. You know, you're just so much better off finding an actual legal job and putting all your effort into that. You know, because in general, what I've seen, you know, with the people I've interviewed, is that for every year they ball out, they get about 5 years in prison.
Exactly. And to be honest with you, do I miss the lifestyle? No. You know, like right now, I'm comfortable. Like my son is an All-American football athlete. He has over 30 plus scholarship offers to D1 schools. So I don't have to have all those labels, all that material stuff. That's not my piece. My piece is being able to watch my son live out his dreams and live a life that's the opposite of what I live. His life's so clean, you know, so just me watching my son live a clean cut, good life, I get more fulfillment off of this than I did if I touched $1 million and I got my peace of mind, you know, and I got my family. And that means, and that's priceless. You can put no amount of money on that.
There you have it. Brandi Davis, appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank
and
you.
congrats on turning your life around.
Thank you.
You know, not jumping back in and grabbing the easy money and so forth, which a lot of people end up doing. And, you know, oh, just one more deal. You know, I'm just going to do one more deal and then I'll be set. One more time. That one more time is what, you know, what drags you under. So, you know, appreciate you sharing your story. Congratulations on your son. Looking forward to his football career.
Yes.
You know?
Thank you.
And, you know, wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Peace.